Is it where firms and well workers give their hours, I guess, or they firms buy workers?
A place where workers and employers, or employers and employees meet to exchange technically factors of production, or well, we can just say labor or hours. Okay.
Mm.
And then you have demand and supply, but it's demand for labor and supply for labor. So what would the demand be?
Is it from the firms
Yeah, the quantity of
of workers needed?
workers firms are willing and able to hire at a given wage. And then supply is the quantity of workers who are willing and able to work at a given wage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So demand is the number of workers that firms are willing and able to hire at a given wage, and supply is the number of workers who are willing and able to work at a given wage.
Okay.
Then the next thing is the slope. So we need to know why demand is still downward sloping and why supply is still upward sloping. So why is demand downward sloping?
Well,
Also on these axes is wage and number of workers.
yeah. Or is it because if the wage is higher, firms aren't going to be able to hire as many workers?
Yeah, this is a weird one because of the correlation. Like you would naturally think at a really high wage, you're less willing and able to hire workers. At a low wage, you're willing and able to hire more workers.
Yeah.
But also, there's something called the law of diminishing marginal revenue product, or MRP theory. Yeah?
Yeah.
You've heard of that?
Yeah, a little. Yeah.
So what is MRP?
Is it the amount of extra revenue one more quantity of output or one more worker produces
Will
on
bring.
the farm?
Yeah, good. So marginal product is the number of the extra output one more worker produces, and marginal revenue product is the pound value of how much extra output the extra worker produces. So if I'm currently making 100 chairs and I hire an extra worker for the day, then I could produce 110 chairs. So the marginal revenue product, the marginal product is 10 more chairs, and the marginal revenue product is 10 more chairs times its price. And why would that be diminishing? Like the more workers I hire, so why would that be diminishing?
Is it because, wait, is this in the short run? So then, is it similar to like?
Yeah, it's in the. Wait. Okay, yeah, what was your reason?
Would it be like the more workers you hire, because same reason for the law of diminishing marginal returns, they're gonna produce less, like output. And if
What if it's in the long run? Wait, long run is when all factors are variable, right?
yeah.
So no, yeah, we're in the short run. So you're adding more workers to the same fixed factors. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. So just as an easy example, if I have a pizzeria and I'm making like I have like 10 do you cook pizza on ovens? So you have to, let's say we have 10 ovens. Yeah, in ovens. So I could have 10 workers or 12 workers if they're taking breaks and stuff. But if I hire 50 workers but I still have 10 ovens, is there any point?
No.
Because they're still going to have to share between 10 ovens and they can't do any extra like output because you can add as many workers as you want, but if you don't change the number of ovens, it won't increase the number of pizzas made.
Mhm.
Cool. Next is supply. Why is that upward sloping? So just give the
Oh, is
common
that
sense reason first, and then we'll talk about it in detail.
because well, if you're paying more money, they're going to be willing to work more hours, or more people are going to be willing to work.
Perfect. And then have you heard about it being backward bending or not sure?
Yeah, is that a substitution and income effect?
Yeah, so the first bit's
Is
just
that
the
one?
bit you said already, the common sense bit. And what's that called? Is that the income or substitution effect?
I think it's both, right?
Um, oh yeah, both happen at the same time, but which one's dominating when it's going up?
Is it the substitution, or is it? Oh no, so
Uh,
sorry, it's the
income.
income effect. Is that
Yeah,
always
yeah,
positive?
yeah. I'll tell you why after. So the income effect just says the opportunity cost of not working increases, so you're more likely to work at a higher wage.
Mhm.
And then the substitution effect is you after a certain point you have enough wage that you don't need more wage, but you need more leisure. Okay. And
Wait, so is this just for like an individual, or is it for the? Would you draw this in an actual?
um,
No.
no, for the market you just draw it upward sloping. We don't care about the backward bending bit. Um, it's for the individual.
So when would you actually use it? Like in an essay?
You never use the backward bending one. You just do the upward sloping one because the backward bending bit only happens at like a certain stage, which most people don't really get to anyway. Like past that, it's like it explains the reason why we don't work 7 days a week. We work 4 or 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't actually matter because we already have weekends and holidays and stuff.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you're explaining why it's upward sloping, you just need to talk about the income effect really. But the substitute effect is just like good evaluation or extra knowledge.
Okay.
Okay. So the market one is just upward sloping. It's not actually backward bending. Is that fine?
Yeah.
And then the last thing I just wanted to go over before we move on to the factors that shift the curves is that just remember that these two things. So for workers, what is it? It's work versus, what's the alternative to work?
Leisure.
You don't work. Yeah. So that word is important because it summarizes like just relaxing and enjoying yourself. But in your essay, you want to say the word leisure. And then for the firm, it's either workers versus, what's the alternative to workers?
Capital.
Yeah, capital. And then that summarizes like machine or technology or other factors of production that can replace the worker. And for the worker's perspective, the leisure time will replace the idea of work.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So going back to demand, demand for labor. You know how we said it's the number of workers that firms are willing and able to hire at a given wage. If that shifts, what is that telling us? If it shifts to the right,
Is it that the workers' MRP is higher?
but even in a more simple way, like the number of people, like it tells us that.
Oh, so is it
Yeah.
firms are willing to hire more at the same wage?
Yeah, exactly. So even if the wage doesn't change, one of these factors will mean that workers are more attractive even at that same wage. So then what are the factors?
Oh, is it because it's derived demand? So it'd be how would it be if the demand for whatever the labor is producing goes up?
Yeah, good. So PDPC is my way of remembering it. So demand for the good. Price of the good, because it leads to a higher quantity demanded or low quantity demanded. What else? The other two aren't the
Productivity.
factors. Yeah, of the worker. Good. And then the price of capital or the worth of capital, like if it's, I guess technically the productivity of capital.
Okay.
So in summary, labor is derived demand. So the price and the demand for the good itself has to be a factor. And then it's just the alternative, the fact that it's worker versus capital. And then you know how we said it's worker versus capital, and we also said it's work versus leisure. So then that brings us on to the next bit, which is the supply of labor. So what are some factors that might affect the supply of labor? So that means you're more willing to work at the same wage.
Oh, is this where the non-monetary effects come in, or the net? Is it called the?
Yeah.
What's it called? Is it the net advantage?
Okay. Yeah.
Something.
So let's just keep it simple. So what are just some of those things then? So you're right. It's like non-monetary like non-monetary factors. So just the things that make work tempting other than the wage.
Hmm.
So what kind of things could they be?
Could it be like maybe pension or holidays or maybe just for like the greater good?
Yeah. What are the ones that would like actually change quite often? So let's start with the first thing. What's the alternative to work?
Leisure.
So your value for leisure might change. When might your when might your value for leisure change?
Would it be as you get older, or maybe you get family?
Yeah, exactly. If you have like kids or something, you might be more willing to take days off, or if you're working really hard, then so like right now you're studying for your A levels, so every day you have free, you enjoy it a lot more. But when you're on summer holidays, if you have 6 to 8 weeks when you're not working, doing any studying, then are you so right now would you be willing to have a job?
No.
So even if I pay you like £15 per hour, you'd still not take a job. But in the summer holidays, if I offered you a job for £15 per hour, you'd be tempted.
Yeah.
Exactly. So your value of leisure changes during the summer holidays because you already have so much of it.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a good one. And then other ones like mobility, so like occupational mobility. But that just means if you're
Yeah.
trained enough, like if you're able to take certain jobs in the first place. Also, like right now, you're very good at your subjects, but you're not qualified in them. So you can't actually have a job in maths or computer science. But when you have your degree, your occupational mobility increases a lot. So then your supply of labor also increases. Like right now, you wouldn't be willing and able to work in a data science job. But once you get your degree, you're willing and able to work in it, right? Or you could
Yeah.
be. Cool. Barriers to entry. So not anybody can just become a doctor. You have to pass medical school. And also population. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Shall I move on?
Yeah.
So just to summarize so far, we need the definitions for supply and demand, the reasons why they're upward or downward sloping, and their factors. Okay. The final bit, before we can actually do like the interesting stuff, is just PED and PES. Okay. So PED refers to if there is if there's an increase or decrease in wages. So if there's an increase in wages, are we going to hire more or less people?
Less.
Yeah, but then PED is about, are you going to want to hire a lot less or just a few less? That's what PED is, okay? So what might affect that in a business? Like if you have a pizza shop and wages go down. So naturally, if wages go down, you're going to be more willing and able to hire like an extra worker or two. Okay. So if I'm a pizza shop and wages go down, will I hire one more chef or 10 more chefs or 100 more chefs? So what would determine that?
Would it be the size of the business?
Yeah. So if I have like a lot of shops, if it's like Pizza Hut, then I might hire like one extra worker in all the shops, maybe. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Or like if it's like a massive shop, then I'll hire like a few more. Cool. What else?
Could it be how big of like their wages are in your, like what percentage of your costs are wages?
Yeah, good. Your cost of labor out of total cost. It's similar to PED and like normal. So if workers are £10 per hour and they become 10% more expensive, so they go to £11 per hour, I'm not really going to cut down on that many of them because it's just that 10% is only £1 extra. But if I'm hiring workers on £100 per hour for a different type of job, like footballers or something like that, that 10% means I'm going from £10,000 to £11,000. So I'm going to cut down quite a bit more. And then I think, again, what's the alternative to workers?
It's capital.
So, yeah. So I gave the example in the pizza shop of wages decreasing, but let's go back to wages increasing. When I'm thinking, so if wages increase for all the chefs, what would I consider doing instead?
Be switching to
Machines, right?
machines.
But then you realize that machines can't cook pizza as nicely. So then you have to still hire your chefs, even if they ask for more money. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. So substitutability of capital.
Oh, would the skill set of the workers also come into?
Yeah,
Okay.
that counts as the substitutability of capital as well, because if workers are more skilled, it just means capital is less substitutable. So you could put in brackets versus workers. And then the last one is just elasticity of the product. So that just means, wait, why would that be important or useful if wages go up?
Well, would it be if the actual good or service is inelastic, even if the
Yeah.
price
Why would that help?
is,
If wages go up, then?
would it mean that you can just increase the price of your product and people would still buy it? So it wouldn't
Yeah,
matter if
just
you're paying a higher
add
wage.
one more step to it. If wages go up, you still hire the same number of workers, then and you'll just increase. So if wages go up by 10%, you'll just charge 10% more for the actual pizza. And then the customers will still buy your pizza at 10% more, and you can just pay your chefs 10% more. Perfect. Last one is PES. So how is PES important in the labor market?
Would it be, does it depend? Well, it's how, okay, so if there's a change in wage, how much extra workers would be able to work? Or how many?
Yeah.
I don't say that very well, but yeah.
Yeah, so wait, that's not even in the spec, is it? PES. Yeah, it's not in the spec, don't worry. Yeah, it's not. But yeah, just for just what you were saying. So if wages go up, we would want to work more, but would we work like 1 hour more or 10 hours more? That's basically what it's about. Cool. But then I guess that yeah, that makes sense now. So you know how we were talking about income and substitution effect?
Yeah.
Your income and your substitution effect are your factors of PES, technically. if you think about it, because that's determining the gradient of the supply curve, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Because
Oh,
it
yeah.
kind of like this isn't in the spec, but basically, right? Because if your income effect is dominating, it will be quite upward sloping and steep. But if your substitution effect is dominating, it will be a negative gradient.
Mhm.
And like it just depends on like like what you were saying about if you have kids and you value your leisure more, or for example, the summer holidays versus now thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go on to the next bit, I'm just going to tell you the most common questions. Then I'll go over everything else. So the most common questions in the labor market they like to ask are best ways to reduce inequality, or sometimes they'll say relative poverty or stuff like that. Or they could be specific about income inequality or wealth inequality.
Mm.
Then the second one is they always ask, should we intervene to reduce inequality or leave it to free market? Okay.
Mhm.
So everything we do now, they should relate back to these questions in some way. So it makes it easier to understand them.
Okay.
These are like your 225 markers that they ask.
So are we moving on to inequality now?
We're about to,
Or is it
not yet.
still?
Just there's one more bit on labor market.
Okay.
The first is just a perfectly competitive labor market. It's really quick. So now we know that it looks like that, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if you put a minimum wage? Because that's like one easy way to reduce inequality.
Or would it just be like a straight line over over the equilibrium?
What's the upside and downside of that?
Does it mean that is it excess supply?
Yeah, and excess supply represents.
Is it more unemployment?
Yeah, no, like it, not more. It is the excess supply is the exact amount of unemployment.
Oh.
So in a perfect market, there is never any unemployment. Wait, yeah, there's never any unemployment in a perfect market, which sounds weird. Do you get why?
Well, is it because it's at equilibrium?
Yeah. So yeah, there might be more people who want to work, but at that specific wage, there won't be anyone who wants to work who doesn't have a job. It matches at so if that's £10, yeah, and that's 100 workers. There's no all the 100 workers who want to work at that wage get their job. So if you want to work, you have to reduce what wage you're willing to work at. But the problem with this is you can't have that in real life. Why can you not have that in real life?
Is it because firms will exploit workers and pay less?
That's one thing. What else? Just say loads of common sense points for this because it's not an actual theoretical thing. It's just discussion. What else? So, or like, why would workers get exploited?
Or is it because there's not perfect knowledge in the labor market?
Let's assume there was perfect knowledge. Good point though, but let's just assume there was because there's another. So, if I asked you to be a mechanic, would you say yes or no?
Well, I don't have the skills to be
Yeah, and you
a
wouldn't want
mechanic,
to
so
anyway,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you? So how much money would you be willing to be a mechanic for? What would you ask for from me to pay you to be a mechanic?
It'd probably be higher than what someone
Yeah.
who wants to be a mechanic.
So then, yeah, exactly. And also, okay, so then the supply curve would be like here, like it would be high, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then the demand curve would be like it could be like that. There might not always be an equilibrium, maybe. Or also another example, let's say yeah, so the demand curve being low. So let's say you wanted to hire a mechanic, but okay, wait, hold on. Yeah, basically, a better way of explaining it is that some markets will have equilibriums like that. And then that's a really low wage, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you just leave it to the market, there'll be some equilibriums that are really high and some that are really low. But we can't allow people to be hired at like £5 per hour just because that's the perfect market equilibrium. Like obviously we know all the benefits about leaving stuff to the free market, but it doesn't work with the labor market because of the extreme level of poverty it causes. If the equilibrium is too extreme, like especially on the low side, then that would lead to people not being able to live a good life. So then there has to be a minimum wage. But then it's just a case of do we raise the minimum wage more or less, or like what do we do with that? But yeah, it would always cause unemployment. Okay. Last thing is the monopsony. So what's a monopsony labor market?
Is it where there's one sole like firm that pays or buys labor?
Yeah, sole employer of labor. How many minutes are left on the meeting?
I think 1 minute 30 seconds.
So they profit maximize. So they would be at the point where?
Is it MRP equals MC? Or
Yeah,
MC
so
equals
MC
MR?
equals MR in normal, but MC equals MRP here. Then we'll do the diagram after after the meeting restarts.
Okay.
Let's just take a 1 minute break and rejoin. Monopsony market looks like. So you have your demand equals MRP. And you have your, well, like your supply as well. So that bit stays the same. But we have to say supply equals average cost. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Then the next bit is just marginal cost, which is twice as steep. So first of all, do you know why supply tells you the average cost?
Is it because it's the cost per worker?
Yeah, so wherever
So
you
it's
are
the
on the
way.
supply, yeah, wherever you decide to catch the workers on the supply curve, that's how much you have to pay them more. So on average, it will tell you their costs as well. Why is the marginal cost steeper?
Oh, is it because it's because if you pay one worker a certain wage, you have to pay all of the workers that way. So then the
Yeah, so
cost for
you,
every next worker is more.
yeah, the cost for every next worker is more. So the cost of hiring an extra worker. So like, let's just say we're here, right? If I want to hire more workers at £11, it's unfair to pay these guys £10. So my marginal cost is not 11, it's 11 plus hiring all the other guys at £1 extra, because we can't like cheat and just pay different people different amounts for the same job.
Yeah.
So marginal cost increases a lot every time you hire an extra worker. And then yeah, we decided that we hire workers at MC because MRP. Wages down here. Okay. And that's your competitive wage. The most important thing is that the minimum wage in this. So why is it really cool to have a minimum wage in a monopsony compared to the other one?
Is it because they're already paying much less than equilibrium? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're exploiting workers really badly. So if we hire workers and we do that, if we have a minimum wage, that's the new supply curve. And the marginal cost goes like that. So if I look for MC equals MRP, it's now over here. So I've increased my quantity of workers and I've increased the wage at the same time. So it shows that having a minimum wage in a monopsony is really valuable. Like there's not many people that lose out from it apart from the firm. So I did that quite fast. Do you get why the supply curve becomes the red one?
Is it because below the equilibrium point they have to pay that certain wage?
Yeah, so
And
this
then
is all illegal now. So even those guys who were previously willing to work at £1 an hour are still going to get the minimum wage.
Yeah.
And after it just continues as normal. The marginal cost is also that flat amount because every extra worker is still that minimum wage, so £10 or something.
Mm.
But then after you have to just jump up to the old marginal cost curve after that quantity. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then so we talked about the advantage. The main advantage is that you can increase wage and quantity of workers. So you're going to surely reduce inequality. What's the only like main evaluation for this? Why is it not all good? Or like even if it is just really, really good, how could you evaluate it?
Would you say, would it be just that it's not good for the firm?
Yeah, why? Or like what would happen because of that if you had to just lengthen your chain of reasoning?
Would it be that their costs would go up from what it normally would be?
Yeah.
Um,
So maybe like
and
less
then
profit, less dynamic efficiency, less innovation.
would that also mean they wouldn't be able to hire more workers beyond what they have to, or beyond the equilibrium point?
Beyond equilibrium, yeah, but until equilibrium, they would have to hire workers. So they have no excuses until equilibrium. So, but the thing is, that's not really the best evaluation because,
Yeah.
or it's like like a counter evaluation because it just shows that the minimum wage in a monopsony is working. They're being forced to hire more workers. They have no choice. They were exploiting workers before, and now they're being fair. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Cool. But you can talk about how there's higher costs, and then maybe they were making good use of that profit. Good use of the profit always means like innovation and investment. So that might reduce, right?
Yeah.
In more real life, this is like theoretical. In real life in the UK, who are the monopolies?
Is it like the government?
Yeah. So the best example I could think of is a fireman. Where would a fireman work? Only for the government, right?
Yeah.
you can't qualify to be a fireman and be like, oh, I'll work for ASDA or something. You have to work for the government. That's the only place you can work. So it's the government who are the monopoly and are underpaying their staff. And then like there's other cases as well, like doctors, nurses, and teachers. But it's not a pure monopoly because you can work in private healthcare or private schools.
Mm.
So then you have that choice, but in general, it's the government who are the monopoly. And who is the person setting the minimum wage, like putting that law in place?
The government.
The government. So it could be that they're less likely to do it in the first place, but then you can't really say that because it's a democracy, so it can be voted for. But then what's the other disadvantage? Because you can't say like they're unlikely to do it because it could just be voted that they will do it. But what would be the other negative impact? If you're forcing the government to pay a higher minimum wage?
Would it be that they won't be able to spend on maybe like supply side policies or benefits or something else?
Yeah, there'll be an opportunity cost. So if you're paying the NHS workers more, then the NHS might get less quality equipment. Or it could be that, let's say you've negotiated higher wage for nurses, then teachers might get paid less. Or they might just be like, oh, we have a budget for the year. Let's pay all our teachers more, but sack some of them. Even though the monopoly diagram says that they can hire more, it's not true because that monopoly diagram that we drew was the monopoly market for teachers. So if profit maximization like can happen with higher pay, it doesn't apply because the government are not doing it for profit. The government, they're just confused. So if they decide that they have to pay teachers more, then you'll just get schools with like less staff and then children will suffer. So it's just like it's just way more complicated with the government. So that's your easy kind of like evaluation. So with the policies question, remember how it was like best policies for inequality?
Mm-hmm.
So the first easy one you can always refer to is minimum wage. And that's two easy paragraphs because you always start off nice and easy with the minimum wage in a perfect market. And then the easy evaluation, what was that one?
Yeah, there's excess supply.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can use that to link onto your next one, which is, however, if the market is a monopoly, then implementing a minimum wage can not only increase wage, but also increase employment. And then when you get to that bit, you can say, however, in evaluation, the most common monopolies in the UK are the government, such as with like firemen, firewomen, teachers, and so on. And then it becomes more complicated than just looking at like the profit maximization diagram, because you can't really measure teachers' MRP very easily. So that's very complicated. So then the whole inequality thing comes in there because, so the first two definitions are wage differentials and wage discrimination. So what is wage discrimination?
Is it when there's no difference in like skill or quality of the workers, and then you're just
They
paying
still
them
get paid.
less?
So yeah, exactly. So two workers get paid a different wage for doing the same job. Okay. If you have to mention that in your essay, it's an easy like a couple of sentences, you just define it and you can just explain that. Like, let's say it's a 15 marker and it asks about wage discrimination. You can just explain that the definition of wage discrimination and just say that it should be illegal. It is illegal. And then if you have to evaluate it, you can just say that it's hard to tell when it happens. But there's no policies other than like making it illegal. I got asked that in a random job interview once. They were like, it was halfway through a job interview, and they just asked me, what would you do to see if there is gender inequality in our company? And like, how would you? I literally had to waffle so much. I didn't get the job obviously. The funny thing was, I did at university, like one of my modules, there was like a whole lecture on like inequality as well. So I said that I did one, but I didn't. They asked me what I wrote in it. I said I didn't remember properly. But yeah,
That's such an odd question to ask.
they asked those kind. Yeah, but that's what happens in job interviews. They just ask random questions just to see how you think, and then it depends on your overall. Yeah. Cool. So, more interestingly, we have wage differentials. What's that?
Oh, is it when there's a valid reason?
Yeah, and how would you define it?
Is it when the workers get paid different wages?
For doing
Is it the same job?
different jobs.
Oh,
So wage discrimination is when workers get paid different wages for doing the same job. Wage differential is when workers get paid different wages for doing different jobs.
okay. Yeah.
So we have a bunch of like, so North versus London, or footballers versus teachers. Ethnicity, gender, and so on. So we never so it's more like just interesting. Essay wise, we don't have to go into it too much. It's more of a common 15 marker or 10 marker. But just really quickly, what might be some reasons for any of these, if you know any of them? What could be the reason for some of these differentials?
The first one would be like there's a difference in the cost of living, so you'd have to get paid higher. So in London,
So the cost of living is because of the different wages. So I mean, your thinking was right, but it's just because. So the cost of living in London is higher because the wages are higher in London.
okay.
So what would the reason have been to like lead to the higher wages in London in the first place? You're right though, it is a cycle, but let's just assume that it's not because of that, just to make this easier.
Wait, so why would I was asking why people would move to London to get jobs? Why they'd get higher wages?
I'm asking why are wages higher in London compared to up north, other than cost of living. So like before,
Oh, is it?
yeah. But
Is there
just all
more
of these are about
competition?
MRP, yeah. All of these are about supply, demand, and MRP. So how would that apply?
Is it that there's more like different companies or more companies in London that are willing to hire at different wages? So then they have to offer a higher wage to get workers.
So you're saying the supply of work is higher or the demand for work is higher? Or one of them
Demand.
as well? Yeah. So yeah. So that's like north, and then that's like London. So you've got a demand curve that's shifted to the right because of whatever reason. So based on the factors of demand, what could be one of them that mean that the demand for labor is higher in London? Does any example? So the PDPC. It can't be capital because that's the same everywhere. So what would be the?
Would it be that the price of the good is higher in
The
London?
prices of the goods are higher in London. The demand for the goods are higher in London. Also, the productivity of workers are higher in London. You could argue, like they're not. It's just theory, but the book will tell you that higher skilled workers with a higher MRP. So the ones that went to university and studied very difficult degrees, or the skilled doctors or surgeons, are more attracted to live in London, and therefore the MRP on average of London workers becomes higher than the MRP of the average worker in somewhere like Newcastle or something. That's just a theory. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Cool. What about footballers versus teachers? Is it like a supply issue, or is it like a demand and MRP issue? Or both?
Would be supply.
Yeah. It could be both, but yeah. Why supply?
Or would it be that there's
Higher supply of?
teachers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so remember, supply is not just number of people willing to work, because like there's probably more people willing to be a footballer than a teacher, or maybe a similar amount if it's like equally as easy. But remember, it's about willing and able to do that thing. Okay. So to be a good teacher is hard, but not that hard, right? To be one of the best teachers in a school, like it's doable. But to be one of the best footballers in that area or that city is very, 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 very difficult.
Yeah.
So the number of people willing and able to be a good teacher is higher than the number of people willing and able to be a good footballer. Then what about on the demand side in terms of MRP? That's a more complicated and interesting one as well.
Would it be that the footballers' MRP is higher then?
Yeah, so the issue is with a teacher, it's not even a teacher's MRP as well, because a teacher is adding so much MRP to the economy as a whole and in the long term, because a teacher is teaching like 30 students at once. And it could be that, like, let's say there's a really good teacher at your school, and that teacher is helping every one of their students get an A-star in maths. And because of that, they're going to university and getting good jobs. So they're boosting all of these people's lives, and creating positive externalities for the economy. So then what would be the problem? Because their MRP is actually as high as the football. But what would be the issue?
Would it be that you can't measure it?
Yeah, exactly. You can't measure it. And it's the same with like nurses and doctors. So a doctor's MRP, or like at least their marginal product, is very, very high. They're saving lives every day. But the problem is nobody puts a price on that. And it becomes more and more obvious when you compare doctors to private doctors, or especially dentists to private dentists, because you literally have different prices for somebody going to the NHS for dentist or somebody going to a private dentist. And even with school, in a private school, you might have somebody paying like up to £20,000 per year to go to private school. So then you can almost measure the teacher's MRP that way. So then you could give them a higher wage. Yeah. Cool. So there's supply and demand in that one. Ethnicity and gender. What about those ones? in terms of MRP. So not including discrimination. So assuming it is fair, why on average would some ethnicities get higher pay than other ethnicities, and male versus female?
Would it be, well, would it be about the leisure and the opportunity cost of it?
Which one are you talking about? Ethnicity or gender?
Well, I think I actually read in class about the fact that like women are more likely to take hours off of work for
Yeah.
like children and that sort of stuff.
Does that affect your MRP?
Or it would, yeah, it would lower it, right? It would make it so workers
So
are
what
less
happens
likely.
is, if you're, let's just say the average age of maternity leave is like 28 or something. I'm just making it up. So if you have a graduate male and a graduate female, let's assume that they both get paid on average the exact same amount. And then you have a 23-year-old, 24-year-old, 25-year-old male versus female, and they also get paid the exact same amount because the MRPs are growing equally, right?
Yeah.
The issue is when you compare a 30-year-old male versus a 30-year-old female, the female is more likely on average to have taken 1 year off, so they would have stayed at the same MRP, while the male would have got a one year more worth of training and MRP. So at some point there'll be a divergence. Or you can even argue that if somebody's hiring someone as a graduate and they're completely equal, then somebody might just choose a male because like they might be like, oh, I've had an experience where this girl was really good, but then she took 1 year off work. But that's not really a thing. I mean, we tried to make that not a thing by introducing paternity leave and stuff like that for both genders and stuff like that.
Okay.
Cool. What about ethnicity? It's like a similar argument. On average, and certain ethnicity will be able to produce a better MRP, higher MRP than another ethnicity. What reasons could that be?
Would it be like cultural reasons? Also,
Maybe. There's an
maybe
obvious
like
one.
there's
It's just
holidays.
holidays. Yeah, I never thought of that. Because if you live in a certain country, then that country might have set bank holidays, and if you match them, you might be able, you might produce more productivity throughout the working day. But it's even easier than that. You just have to think about language. So on average, a white person in England will be better at English than a brown person in England, just on average, because they know English better because they've come from an English family. But obviously that reduces as soon as like you grow up and like your English becomes your first language. So that's the only reason that we need to worry about for the textbook. Cool. Are you in a rush, by the way? Or we'll quickly just go into inequality.
I'm not in a rush.
Okay, cool. After all, this inequality is quite quick because you just need to know a few things. So this is the Lorenz curve. You have the percent of all income, and you have the percent of all population. I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter if you accidentally get the axis the wrong way around. It doesn't change. No, I think it has to be population on the x-axis. We start with this line. Okay. So that will say the line of perfect equality, but I'm just going to write if perfect equality. So that's saying 10% of the population earn 10% of the income. 37% of the population earn 37% of the income. So no matter where you look on the line, each person earns the same income. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay.
If 1%, like let's say there's a country with 100 people, if 10 people, let's say there's a country with 100 people and the maximum income added, the GDP of the country was £100.
Mhm.
So if each person earned £1, this would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's the line of perfect equality. Now, in reality, how does the curve look?
Or would it be like backward bend? Or would it be
Oh, it looks kind of like that, but yeah. So it's flat and then steep. I'll do it even more. So this just suggests that 50% in this made up one, 50% of the population earn only 30% of, or 20% even. I'm just making numbers up, but that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Of all the income, 90% of the population might earn 50% of all income. So how much does the last 10% earn?
Last 10.
Like this last, the
It'd be
90 to 100, how much of the income do they earn?
would it be 30?
50, right?
Okay.
Because 90% earn 50.
Mhm.
So what's left?
Oh,
10%
so
of
the other
people.
10. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Got it.
That's what happens in real life. And obviously, the more equal you are, you're going to be more like this or something. You'll never be perfectly equal. Or worse countries will be like that. Right?
Mhm.
So then the formula is just so we call this area A, and we call this, we complete the triangle, area B. So the Gini coefficient is A over A plus B. But if you forget that, just remember, the narrower it is, then the closer to perfect equality you are. So 0 means you're perfectly equal. 1 means you're perfectly unequal.
Okay. Wait, so is A the 90% and then B would be 10?
Oh, it doesn't work like that. Sorry. The numbers are not meant to be there anymore.
Mm.
It's the area, the whole area. So A is this whole. So A is the area of this, which you'll never have to do. They'll tell you it. And then B is all of this area.
Okay.
Basically, the denominator is your total population times your total income. Like A plus B is just the whole graph.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
A is just how much off you are from perfect equality in terms of area.
Okay.
So countries like, so Nordic countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland, those ones are very equal. They're known to be the most equal countries in the world. Tax rates will be very high and stuff like that. And then other countries will be quite unequal. So I think the UK is somewhere in the middle. And you can have a Lorenz curve and a Gini coefficient for income and a different Lorenz curve and Gini coefficient for wealth.
So would you just change the percent of all income to percent of all wealth?
Yeah, exactly. Let's just carry on for 5 minutes and we'll do one more thing. So This is a bit of easier part because you get to use common sense and general knowledge. So, what policies can we use to reduce income inequality? We already talked
Oh,
about
would
one.
it be progressive? Oh, so it would be national minimum wage. We've talked about
Yeah.
progressive taxing and
Yeah, good. Corporation tax as well. If it's actually no, progressive taxes. So progressive tax for anything. So it could be make income taxes. So income taxes are already progressive. You can say make income tax more progressive. Right?
Yeah.
So don't increase everyone's income tax. Only increase the higher earners' income tax. Corporation tax, make it more progressive. So charge higher tax on higher profit and less tax on less profit. Benefits as well. So unemployment benefits, child benefits, stuff like that. Also, that just made me realize one other thing, like, you know, the whole perfect labor market thing.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about why that is not, you can't have a perfect market, you have to intervene in the labor market. Actually, that's what I was going to do next, so I'll come back to that in a second. Is there anything else for policies that you can think of? I wouldn't mention it too much in micro, but if it's a paper 3 question, it's one of the topics that can come, labor market can come in paper 1 or 3. So you can reserve supply side policies like education and training.
Okay.
It can potentially help to reduce inequality because you could make everybody more skilled and then reduce the gap of low skilled versus high skilled people.
Yeah.
And then if you believe in MRP theory, then it will just narrow the gap. Cool. Quick evaluations for the first 3, like good and bad. We've already done the minimum wage, so we just talk about if it's a monopoly or not, or perfect market. What are the evaluations for benefits and taxes?
Oh, could it be that it could like reduce incentives to work?
Yeah. I'll give you 2 good ones. So the Laffer curve is like this, okay? So these are your A-star evaluations for labor market. What does the graph I drew show? As
So is
tax
it
rate increases,
tax revenue? At first it'll increase, but then it'll start to decrease.
yeah. And why do you think that might happen? So the first bit's obvious. So if I tax everybody more, I as government would collect more tax revenue. Why does it go down after?
Is it because people will either stop working as much or they're going to find a way to stop paying taxes? Oh,
Yeah, no, stop working is another word for retire, isn't it?
yeah.
Because you're not willing and able to work anymore. Or the last one's the most common, leave the country. That applies to big businesses, like let's just say Sainsbury's is making, or Apple is making millions of pounds, and you tax them 80% of their profit. They just close down all their shops in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you've got an Apple store in Oxford Street, and you want to tax them like 80%. They just close their shop, isn't it, and just sell online. And they wouldn't have to pay tax in the UK anymore. So the government would lose out. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So, sorry. So, if you increase tax rate too much and become too greedy, you'll incentivize people to leave the country or to retire. The second evaluation, the second and last one is just a trickle down effect. So, there's 2 effects One is saying that it's good to. So remember, these policies are redistributed, right? You're distributing money from high income to low income earners. So what's the main argument that says that low income earners should have more more money? What's the argument that of giving more money or favoring low income earners?
In favor?
Yeah. How come? How would you be able to argue that low income earners are more likely to benefit
Oh,
the
is it
economy?
because their marginal propensity to consume is higher?
Yep, perfect.
Check.
So low income earners have a high MPC. So that's like a high level evaluation you can bring in that other people won't think about. That basically means like if I give somebody on low income benefits, what would happen to those benefits?
They'd spend it on consumption, so AD would increase.
Yeah, they'd spend all of it, right? So
Yeah.
the money would circulate it would be an injection into the economy anyway. If I let higher income earners keep more of their income, what are they going to do with that?
Well, they'll save it.
Yeah, they'll save it and it'll be a leakage from the economy. Saving is a leakage or withdrawal in the circular flow. Okay, and now if we scratch these arguments, the opposite is the trickle down effect, which in real life I'm not sure if it's a good argument or not. It could be, but what would that mean?
It's going to be the opposite.
Yeah, but what's the argument there that says that it's a good idea to let high income earners earn more money? So it's the theory that the money comes down to low income earners anyway and helps them out. How could that be the case?
Would it be that they'd hire the earners or they'd...
Oh, yeah, so they could spend more in general. If they spend more at restaurants or they tip more at restaurants, then it will go to low income earners anyway. So if you let's say somebody's earning somebody's earning £100,000, they use after tax they earn £70,000, but now after tax they earn £80,000. That extra £10,000 they might just be like way more generous with it. Or so they could spend more. That could either create jobs or for low income earners and give them more of a chance of earning a higher income as well. Or like you said, that they could be more likely to start businesses themselves and hire more. But either way, the point is that low income earners might be able to have more jobs for themselves. Also, this isn't related to lowering their tax because it doesn't do that. But if you, in other ways, letting high income earners earn more money, they're the ones who pay more tax. So it's good for them to increase their earnings. It doesn't apply in terms of reducing their tax, but if it's about should high income earners earn as much as they do, you could be like, yeah, it's a good idea because they pay more tax anyway. So they're also contributing to the economy a lot by earning so much. So if a footballer in the UK is earning £100,000 per week, that means they're contributing like £40,000 per week in tax. Right?
Yeah.
So that's for progressive taxes and benefits, and then we already did minimum wage. And then the last question is about should we intervene or leave to the free market? So, what are some arguments in favor of intervening or in favor of leaving this whole inequality issue to the free market?
Well, you know how we said we need a national minimum wage because
Yeah.
otherwise, like
Yeah.
maybe some people wouldn't get paid a living wage.
Yeah. So we have to intervene because a good example to explain is that intervention prevents very bad negative externalities, prevents extreme or absolute poverty, and the negative externalities that come with that. And to give an example, the government is able to protect people who are, like, let's say, people with disabilities, right? What would happen to people with disabilities in a free market?
Would it be that they wouldn't be able to work in a lot of different jobs, so they wouldn't get?
Because demand is purely based on MRP, which is not fair, right?
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't be able to provide the same MRP, unfortunately. So then, if the government are able to have laws and regulations that mean that different ethnicities or different people, like there should be an equal number of them, then that prevents the absolute and relative poverty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, so the minimum wage like helps there. Good. What else?
Of a free market, would you say that it allocates resources correctly, or like there could be government failure or something?
No unemployment and allocative efficiency, right? That's what you meant, right?
Yeah.
Also, what do I mean by the negative externalities of inequality? What could they be?
Would it be like litter from people, maybe?
Crime, like
Oh, okay.
robberies. It could be depression or like stress or something. Because if somebody can't find a job and provide for themselves, it could lead to crime or stress and stuff like that. Bad health, bad education for their children. It's unfair that people on higher income are able to pay for private school and private education. Sorry, private school and private healthcare, and that leads to them and their kids having better health and better education more accessibly. And then that leads to them being more likely to have better human capital and better MRP, and then them being able to earn more, and it widens the gap even more and more and more. So you can talk about the poverty trap. You can talk about it in both sides. Like it's just one you have to think about. Poverty trap is just the thing I just said. It just says that somebody on high income or somebody on low income is less likely to have money to spend on their health and education or their children's health and education. And if you have bad health, bad education, you have worse human capital, worse MRP, and then that leads to low income, and that goes in a cycle. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. One more for the free market is government failure. What's like the easy example of government failure we talked about today without actually saying it was government failure?
Oh, is it because they're monopsonies?
Oh,
So
yeah, I was going to say two. I was going to say two, and you said the second one. So, oh, wait, no, that's three then. So you got the idea that they're monopsonies. So if the government put a minimum wage on themselves, they could become worse in other aspects, like unintended consequences. So if I have a minimum wage on nurses, then my teachers might get less support.
Yeah.
Another one, what was the minimum wage example of government failure it leads to?
Oh, is
Just
it
in a
lower
in a
employment?
perfect market. Yeah, massive amount of unemployment. Is that going to make inequality better or worse?
Well,
Yeah, because before people were earning £9, but now they're earning £0, right?
mhm.
And then the third example was South Africa. Do you remember what happened in South Africa? The one that was like N-shaped?
Oh, is it that they retire or tax evade or leave the country?
Yeah, exactly. So again, unintended consequences of raising taxes. So you're better just, you're better just leaving it to as more free as you can, in case that stuff can happen. That's everything. I think, yeah. And then the only other question they ask is like, what's worse, income inequality or wealth inequality? But that's more of like it's kind of like a waffle question. You just think of different ideas that relates to everything and decide for yourself. Because it's a very vague question.
Mm.
What's the main difference between wealth and inequality?
Wealth and inequality.
Yeah, what's the difference between them?
Is it that wealth is it like assets wealth or it's like stock?
Yeah, wealth is a stock of all your money, all your assets, stock of assets. Income is a flow of money. So your wealth is an accumulation of income over time. Okay.
Mhm.
So what's worse? There's reasons for both. What do you think is worse? Or what's better to focus on? Is it better to try to reduce income inequality, or is it better to try to reduce wealth inequality?
Would it would it be wealth?
It could be both.
Okay.
Why wealth? Just like a couple of reasons for each.
Well, like
Not sure.
would it just no, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so wealth inequality is like what you're born with. So if somebody has a million, like somebody's a millionaire, somebody's parent is a millionaire and has like let's say Bill Gates' kids, Bill Gates is gonna donate to charity, but apparently, but let's just say you're Bill Gates' child or you're just a normal person's child. So that's wealth inequality, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you could have arguments like the wealth is deserved because their parents worked hard for it and were really high skilled, and might have taught them some of their like how to work and stuff. You could argue that it's not deserved because you didn't earn the income, so it's better if everybody starts at a fair kind of ground, so then have very, very high inheritance tax. So inheritance tax is how much of your inheritance gets taxed.
I thought it was like properties and stuff, inheritance.
Yeah. So like properties, but it could also be a business. Like let's just say Bill Gates is passing like Microsoft onto his kids.
Oh, okay.
So however much value Microsoft is worth, that could also be taxed. But yeah, like for everyday person, it would like be their property that they get. So you have the argument about deserved or not deserved. So income tax is like income inequality is, you can argue it's deserved because some people work harder than others. And then you could also argue that it's better to focus on income inequality because that's what's causing more suffering right now. So people on the streets are not on the streets homeless because of low wealth, because they're on the streets homeless because they have low income. So that's a more urgent issue than wealth inequality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can just use common sense for that and try to think of some ideas if you see an essay like that, and we can go through that another time.